In this video, I'm going to go through my Radiohead CD collection, and Radiohead has been one of my favorite bands over the past 20 years. I got into them pretty heavily when OK Computer, their third album, came out, and since that time, any release that they put out, even if I hadn't heard anything off of it, I was just buying it because they were one of those bands that you knew, sometimes you never knew what you were going to get when you pop the CD into the CD player, just because Tom York and the rest of the band were very unpredictable. But you knew it was going to be of high quality, it was going to be melodic, and it was going to be enjoyable. Even if there were some tracks that didn't necessarily hit the mark, overall it was going to be a great and intriguing experience. Their first album was stuck pretty close to the alternative formula. It's very heavily guitar based. Some great songwriting on here. Creep was their first radio hit. This has got both the censored and uncensored version of it. It's also got Anyone Can Play Guitar. You is a great opening track, but nothing particularly daring about this other than it's just really well-crafted pop hard rock. Not much in the way of a booklet here. They just got photographs and some credits. But a really solid debut. And even if this was the only album that they had put out, if the rest of their albums stank, it would still, they would rank as one of the 90s top bands just based on the strength of that alone. But they followed it up with The Bends, which is a classic album. Not a weak track on here. Some of the more well-known popular tracks on here were High and Dry. Fake Plastic Trees is probably the song that anybody would recognize, even if you're not a Radiohead fan. Just is great. My Iron Lung might be my favorite track on here. Bulletproof, I Wish I Was. So there's a bit more in terms of variety on here. It's not just all heavy guitar rock. There's some softer moments, some more reflective, acoustic-based material on here, but just really, eclectic overall, and a solid second album. And then, of course, their masterpiece, OK Computer, which I really rank as one of my favorite albums of all time. And this has so many great moments on it. It is a concept album. To me, it reminds me of some of my favorite progressive rock concept albums, particularly Dark Side of the Moon, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, another great one. Just pretty fantastic all the way through. You've got Airbag, Paranoid Android, which has just so many different elements to it. And I think it's the longest track on this album. Subterranean Homesick Alien, which is just fantastic, almost like kind of a moody space rocker. It'd be great to just kind of sit in the dark, staring out at the sky and listening to that. Let Down, Karma Police, which borrowed the opening piano riff from the Beatles' Sexy Sadie, is on here. No Surprises, which is great. Just a fantastic album. If you haven't checked it out yet, this would be the album I would recommend anyone who wanted to get into Radiohead, and this would be the first album that I would recommend. In terms of the album packaging, which I love the concept behind all of this. Pretty extensive booklet. Got some lyrics here. Some more creepy artwork. And yeah, I definitely love it. And it's not so much of a departure from the Bends. It's still got light moments. It's still got, harder rocking tracks on it. And so I think the world was pretty unprepared for the album that followed that, which is Kid A. Could not have been more different than OK Computer. Probably the most accessible track on here would be Optimistic. It actually reminds me a little bit of Gimme Shelter or Monkey Man, from the Rolling Stones' Let It Bleed album, but the rest of it is just so bizarre. The opening track, Everything in Its Right Place, is completely keyboard, synthesizer based, just a lot of processed vocals, a lot of snippets of strange sounds, and the rest of it too, it's just so disjointed. Each track is weirdly, bizarrely different from the last, and yet it works really well. It took some time to grow on me, but I really do rank it as one of my favorite Radiohead albums just because it is so weird, and it was such a bold move at the time. When you had a classic masterpiece like OK Computer, and then you just take such a complete left turn and put out something like this, which I'm sure alienated a lot of Radiohead fans who loved the Bends, they loved OK Computer, and then they put out something which is more electronic than it is alternative guitar-based hard rock. So a very bold step, and I give them a lot of credit because, you know, they were at the point where they didn't care, and they didn't care if they lost fans. They were going to do what they wanted to do, and they were going to explore you know, the kind of music that they wanted to make. Critics and fans be damned. So this is another pretty lengthy booklet, but the artwork follows the theme of the cover. Not sure exactly, you know, what to make of some of this artwork, but it's very cool just to kind of look at and try to make sense of. You know, the artwork is almost as difficult to make sense of as the music itself, but it's still just beautiful in a bizarre kind of way. So I'm a big fan of all of Radiohead's album cover designs and their artwork and their booklets. And then Amnesiac, which is almost a sequel to Kid A. It's definitely got some weird moments. People realize that Radiohead was not going to go back and do another album like the Bends. They were not going to go back and do another album like Pablo Honey. They were off in this direction where they were going to make creative, inventive music with heavy elements of electronic music in it. Some guitar rock, but not as much. Just very heavy on the melody, heavy on the weird sounds. And, you know, I think this works. It's a little more accessible than Kid A is, but it's still unique in its own right. Packed Like Sardines is great. Pyramid reminds me a little bit of Paranoid Android, but it's just very a soft piano-based melody there. You and Who's Army is great. Love that. It's just a soft, moody rocker. I Might Be Wrong is one of the harder tracks on here. Knives Out is a fantastic track. Morning Bell, Amnesiac is a sequel to the Morning Bell track that was on Kid A, but just a great album overall. And, you know, not for everybody, but more of kind of the strange artwork. It's difficult to penetrate, I guess, but if you're willing to spend some time with it, it rewards you with every single listen. You hear something that you hadn't heard before. There's a melody that grabs you, maybe that you hadn't noticed before. And so that's one of the things that I really like about Radiohead is you never knew what you were going to get. The formula, there was no formula. It was always going to be different, and they were going to take you in different directions with each release. This is their live album, and it's called I Might Be Wrong Live Recordings. And it's almost an EP. It doesn't have a whole lot of tracks on here. There's about 9 or 10. which in the 90s is not a lot of tracks to stick on a CD, but the arrangements are also different than what were on the album, but it's an enjoyable listening experience. And then Hail to the Thief. My favorites on this one are 2 + 2 = 5. I love Sail to the Moon. And I think some of the lyrical themes on here, this was released shortly after George Bush won the election over Al Gore, which I think ties into the name of the album, Hail to the Thief, because many people felt that George Bush had stolen the election from Al Gore. And so there's somewhat of a, political, lyrical underpinning to some of these tracks. The Gloaming is great. They're There. Punch Up at a Wedding. I'm not sure how you Myxomatosis, A Wolf at the Door. As always, great visuals to absorb while you're listening to the music. And the rest is just lyrics. And some credits. I actually had to replace this CD because my original copy, there was some water damage. I kept my CDs for a certain period actually in some plastic tubs, which I can't even imagine that now, but I had a pretty extensive CD collection, and I was in a smaller condo at the time, an apartment and then a condo, and there was a flood in the basement, and some of my CDs sustained some water damage, and this was one of them, so I had to replace this one. But this is in rainbows. Not a fan of the non-jewel case packaging. I much prefer jewel cases. These things tend to get worn over time. The corners, kind of like vinyl does if you don't take care of it, and yet these are a little more brittle. So I'm not going to open this up too much, but this is a pretty good album. This was one of the first albums where wasn't a huge fan of it all the way through. It's got some great moments on it, but the albums that came before it I liked a little bit more. It does have some strong songs on here that I really do enjoy, but this actually kind of opens up like an envelope, which is pretty unique. And I said I wasn't going to open it up, but here I do, and then kind of everything's just tucked into that, which is unique. But if I had the choice between this and one that was a jewel case, I would take the jewel case. And then this one, I haven't even opened yet. I listened to it a lot on Spotify, but have not actually, as I realize this now, broken the seal on the King of Limbs yet. I like probably about 75% of it on here. The rest of it's not that memorable to me, but the stuff on here that I really do like, and it might just be I need to, listen to it a couple more times to appreciate the other songs on here. But, again, it's Radiohead going off in different directions. But this is another Digipack. And then their most recent album, A Moon-Shaped Pool, which I do enjoy a lot. This is kind of a gatefold Digipack here. It's got a short little booklet, again, in keeping with the theme of the cover artwork. And they really do, you don't get shortchanged on any of Radiohead's booklets or artwork. It's all pretty fantastic, and that is what the CD looks like. But yeah, Burn the Witch, I really enjoy a lot, and probably Dex Dark. That song was actually featured if you have seen um, the TV show Ozark. I think it was first season. They have Dex Dark on here, but that's the sort of music you can expect from the rest of it. Just sort of moody, subdued kind of instrumental. There is some guitar here, but for the most part, it's all atmospheric and deeply lyrical material here. So that is my Radiohead collection, and thanks for watching.